Is just my overall description for the final project. Okay. So here I'll go over the basic steps, make sure we're all on the same page for that, and then I'll show you my version of the project and some well done student samples from other quarters. Okay. So our final last one, this project is worth 250 points, so that's the most points of any project. So I really expect to see kind of your mastery of Illustrator, seamless use of the pen tool, clipping mass, all those sorts of things, line variety, different sorts of shapes in your final project. So you should be very confident at Illustrator by this point. I want to kind of see the whole encapsulation of everything we learned. So you still got to have focal point, use of leading lines where appropriate, use of the rule of thirds or symmetrical composition, good shape design, good use of value contrast on your focal point. Then you put mood on top of that, so you should have some sort of mood or a combination of moods, and then the storytelling on top of that. So this is just kind of a culmination of everything we've learned, and this image that you create for the final should kind of show off all that you have learned and how you've developed your design skills this quarter. So yeah, here's kind of the overall kind of steps for this project. So I'll kind of go over these. So the first one, choose your story from those story options here. Here are your story options. They're all common stories you should be familiar with. If you are not familiar with these or would like to do a different story, please email me or come to lab hours and we can discuss if that option will work. So first, choose your story. I don't want you to like choose 3 or 4 different stories and draw thumbnails for those, okay? So choose story first. Thumbnails. So how many thumbnails do you guys need? I think you need 10. Yes, 10 thumbnails at least. So each thumbnail should be for that one story. So if your story is Jack and the Beanstalk, you'll have 10 different thumbnails showing different scenes, different locations from that story. So in the previous video, I went over those different types of covers. So use that to help you sketch your thumbnails. Okay. So these steps here, photo reference and studies, these are basically the only new steps. You could do these before thumbnails, or you could do it after thumbnails, but usually you want to do it before your workup sketch, or you could kind of do it simultaneously. So reference photos, some of you guys have used them already, are photographs that you use to help you draw stuff. So it's basically when you don't know how to draw something, you'll find a picture of it to help you draw it. Okay. What I do not want you to look at for these, no drawings. Only photographs. Okay, so if you're copying another artist's drawing, you're stealing their style, you're stealing their sort of composition. You can look at other, like I know a lot of these stories have been visualized before as books and movies and all that sorts of things. So I don't want you to copy what other artists have already drawn. You can look at it just to get an idea, but usually I try and avoid other artists' interpretations of stories because I don't want to be influenced by their work. I want to come up with my own unique idea. And if you have your own photos, like if you have your own photos, that is even better, okay? And then studies, reference photos, I think you need 5 of them. So thumbnails 10. Reference photos 5 at least, and studies 1 page. So I'm not real strict about that. Studies are just basically practice drawings. So just rough, loose, quick drawings to help you practice drawing different things. And usually you're going to kind of practice drawing your reference photos. Okay. So for my story, I did the old man in the sea. So here are my studies and reference photos. So I didn't know exactly how to draw a certain type of boat, how to draw. I had never drawn these types of marlin fish before, so I had to find some photos for that and kind of what my old man character may look like. So then I tried to draw different boats and tried to draw those fish to use as my studies based on my reference photos. So it's just things you're not sure exactly how to draw, things you may need to practice. And 1 page in your sketchbook, again, just keep them loose and quick. I'm not going to like be too strict on that as long as I see you practicing some different stuff. So I would say you spend, 20 minutes to an hour on studies, depending on how quick you are with that. All right, so then the workup sketch. So we'll do critiques next week, so you'll choose your best one and do a workup sketch. So basically, there were a few people that had trouble with the creative process. I want to see your idea go from thumbnail, choose your best one, go to a workup sketch, make that best one better. So you add value to these. I want to see full value on your workup sketch. So it means light, dark, and medium values. Details. And just drawn more carefully and slowly. Okay, and go back to that video of things to avoid. I don't want to see suns like this. I don't want to see stick people. Too many gradients, things like that. So just careful, slow down. Your workup sketch should take you about an hour to draw. And then you can use reference photos and studies to help you draw different stuff. And then you'll photograph that. So this workup sketch, most of you guys are doing it right, about 6 inches on the longest side, and thumbnails should be about 3 inches on the longest side. So about twice as big. Then do your final art. So full values final art. Really good shapes drawn with the pen tool, clipping mask, some texture in there. I do want to see texture. I'll have more videos on that next week of how to do that. So that just basically means what something feels like. Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it fluffy? Is it wood texture? Is it grass texture? Is it concrete, brick? So somewhere in there you should have some texture. Okay. Texture, value, contrast, all the stuff we've been practicing. Then your written reflection, you can kind of discuss the course as a whole as well as the final project. So what project did you like the most? Did you like working digitally? What did you like about working digitally? Did you like working traditionally in your sketchbook? How was the creative process? What one of these steps was the easiest or most difficult for you? What videos helped you the most? Things like that. So, and just any feedback you have, what could I do? Any other things I can help provide the students with down the road to help them. So kind of just discuss that whole thing, all turned in a PDF file. So I'll provide you guys a template. I'll send that around probably next week. Save it as a PDF file, turn it in. Always check to see what that PDF file looks like on your end before you submit it. And if you would like optional extra credit, second workup sketch, and second final art. So you can do a second piece of final art, but you'll need to do a second workup sketch, and that can be worth, I think I'll add plus 20 extra credit points, up to 20, okay? So this is what I'm looking for. Again, this is all outlined here and kind of overviewed in the project description, but if you have questions or are confused or would like to work ahead, please come by lab hours or please come or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to help you with any part of this process and make sure you're understanding it all. But this is a big thing, the creative process. See your idea. I don't want to see a final art that looks nothing like your workup sketch or your thumbnails. Or you have some thumbnails and then it changes completely to your workup sketch. Okay, it should definitely change some, but you're not just going to come up with a brand new idea on your workup sketch that I didn't see in the thumbnails, and same with the final art. It should all be a smooth, kind of getting better and step-by-step thumbnail to workup sketch to final art, where I can see it change along the way. I see it hopefully get better along the way based on the critiques I give you, based on changes you want to do to your artwork, maybe changes based on after you look at reference photos and do your studies. Okay? So I'll just show you my version of the project here, all in one PDF. This is for the Old Man and the Sea, which I talked about in the previous video. So thumbnails, different moments from the story. Right here. thumbnails, all very loose. Again, one thumbnail should not take you more than 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, if you're spending 20 minutes on a single thumbnail, that's probably too long. Okay, then I did the studies and reference photos after my thumbnails. Okay, so then here's the workup sketches. Okay, there's 1, 2, and 3. These were sketched in Photoshop, so but yours workup sketches will be in your sketchbook. Some of you are using Procreate, which is okay. Oh no, these were Procreate. But you've already talked to me about that. For most people, these workup sketches and thumbnails will be in your sketchbook. And I just said this final interior illustration, that's kind of like your second extra credit one. Thinking of that's it. One image will be your cover, and one will be an illustration inside. And there's the final cover art. All right. So make sure you're labeling your name here. You're labeling what story you're doing. That's what I missed here. This should say Old Man in the Sea instead of narrative illustration design. So yeah, put your story here. And then label each page what you're doing. So final art. And then your reflection, this font and size should match the font and size of the titles. Okay. Have your work appropriately sized. You don't want it sized really small here in the corner, big enough that I can see and centered. All right, so let's look at some student examples here. This is just from last quarter. This is Maxine Hall, so this one was really good. So they did Jack and the Beanstalk. So here, this is labeled correctly. This is what it should be. Jack and the Beanstalk thumbnails. So there's the thumbnails. So good, here's kind of choice of character. Different moment where they're getting reached down on. Interesting location, the castle. Workup sketch. So here's a really good example where you can see here's the initial idea of giant hand grabbing a little person right here. Then you see, oh, giant hand grabbing the little person. Oh, but they added in the castle. So that is a nice addition, and it changes. It's basically this idea, but with a little bit more added in. Studies, how do you draw a hand? How do you draw a person? How do you draw the giant's eye? How are you going to draw a beanstalk? So different things. The only thing, you can't really find a photograph of a giant, but maybe you could find a photograph of a really big person. All I would suggest here is to have a person instead of an illustration. And there's the final art. So it all came out really well. I would say to change this to not a stick person. That's kind of my only critique on this, but it isn't really a focal point, so it's not as important. The castle becomes the main focal point there, and the hand. But this piece was really well done. And again, this font should be matching the same size. It's just probably a size or two big, but really nice piece here overall. Really good work. And really good evolution of the idea from thumbnail to workup sketch to final art. Let's look at adjustments. So some of these you'll see slightly different amount of workup sketches, different amounts of studies because it changes slightly each quarter. So this project was before COVID. So thumbnails. So this is Little Red Riding Hood here, labeled on that page. Thumbnails labeled. Yeah, thumbnails, studies, really nice studies here. Really cool shapes for the wolf, hand shapes, cloaks for the character, poses for the hunter. Workup sketch, final art. Really nice, cool piece, symmetrical composition, good value contrast on the focal point, good texture and details here in the grass. Okay, so really nice work there. Let's see a couple more. Here's a Rapunzel version. Rapunzel. So, thumbnails, good. Workup sketch, full values in the workup sketch. You get dark values, medium values, and then the light values. Studies, how to draw hands, how to draw profiles of faces, how to draw tree trunks. Good reference photos for how do you draw someone from the side? What does fire look like? What does a hand pose look like? But they're all photographs. It's not other people's drawings. And then there's a final art. Lightest and darkest values on the focal point people. Really nice job of these trees fading away in the distance. Texture on the grass down there. So really nice piece. And great use of dark value. Make sure you have solid black in your final art somewhere. Kiara's. This one was, oh yeah. And feel free to put a twist on your story, okay? Let me go back to this. I forgot this. Add a twist. So you can use these stories as a starting point because they're kind of common stories. But you can change, Little Red Riding Hood into a superhero story. You can change Little Red Riding Hood in space. You can make Little Red Riding Hood a dude instead of a girl. You can create things like that. So this, Kiara here did the book 1984, but with animals, okay? So feel free to do that. And that's kind of a really nice way to get an interesting project, is to put a twist on it and use that story as a starting point. And then make it more interesting by putting a twist on that. So really nice final piece here. Big Bear is watching you instead of Big Brother is watching you. So really fun and kind of clever way to make it your own version of these kind of classical stories. Here's a nice one from Maria's. This is Don Quixote. So yeah, thumbnails, different moments of the story, studies. This is where they workup sketch. There's the workup sketch. And there's the final art. So great silhouette shape for here. Really good silhouette design, clear focal point. I like the change here. So here the horse was white, and then when they got into digital, she made it into a dark value horse. So really well done piece there. So these are all A projects for the most part. Here's Andre's. Thumbnails, studies, more thumbnails, workup sketches with values, and there's the final art. So good texture on the wolf, good drawing of the person, nice pattern in the hair there. And this is D's. They did a really good job. So this is a Japanese fable. So they talked to me and discussed this option since it wasn't one of the choices, if this would work. And I said, yes, it did. It will work. Studies, workup sketch, workup sketch. Here's the workup sketch that they chose. There is the final workup, or final digital art. All right, so remember, think about putting a twist on that story, making it something different and unique than the standard interpretation of the story. So add that twist. You can change the genre. You can do like Peter Pan. You can do like, Little Red Riding Hood as a horror story, things like that. So have fun with it. Be creative. Make it into what you want. Don't feel kind of confined by those choices, but use those choices as a way to kind of focus and see if you can make those stories your own and make them unique. Okay? So please reach out to me with questions to lab hours or through email, and I am happy to do that. We'll do critiques next week, but if you want to work ahead and get feedback ahead of time, email me any sketches or questions you have, and I will look out for those and answer your questions. Good luck moving forward.